What does Hearthstone need to thrive and survive in 2021 and beyond? Well, I asked all of you that very question. More than 1,000 of you shared your thoughts. And in this video, we're going to talk about what Hearthstone needs to fix and what it needs to add to the game this year. Maybe we won't get all 10 of these suggestions, but even just a few could go a really long way. So, starting off with things the game needs to fix, the fifth most common suggestion was more regular balancing of the meta. And I think this is particularly punctuated right now by Bog Spine Knuckles. So I included a nice meme nerf there behind me. This one's been very frustrating to play against now for at least a few weeks. And people are getting itchy to have it fixed. So hopefully that comes in ASAP. And I guess even more generally speaking, people just want nerfs and hopefully buffs more commonly than we see them now. And I have to say, I'm not as bothered by this. I think Hearthstone's achieved a much better balance, cadence, and rhythm than it used to have in the past. I mean, back in the day, we would go months and months without any balance updates. It felt like Undertaker Hunter was just dominating the meta forever. And in the last couple years, balance updates have been coming far more commonly, multiple times per an expansion cycle, sometimes out of desperation, but it feels like just as a policy, they're way more regular than they used to be. So I think we've made a great, forward trend here and a great change over the last couple of years. This one doesn't bother me as much because I do recognize there are some problems with too many nerfs. People craft cards for certain decks, and then when those cards get nerfed, sure, you get a refund on the dust for that card, but you don't get a refund on the dust for the deck. And I'm always surprised when I post like a nerf video, like, hey, nerfs were announced. A lot of people are excited because they thought the card was too powerful, but there are a ton of people who say, well, I'm done with Hearthstone. I crafted this deck. That's all my dust. I'm gone. I can't play anymore. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But there are clearly people who get frustrated when certain powerful cards get nerfed. So, there's kind of ups and downs to having too many balance updates in a given expansion cycle. So I'm actually pretty happy with where we're at right now. Some of you still want more balance updates, or maybe at least more reactive balance updates. When something feels way too good, maybe just react more immediately to things. I totally understand that. So moving on to number 4 here, it's power creep. And you guys want power creep to be fixed. I included a fun example of a distinctly better card there from Magma Rager to Rock Rager. Really showcases just how much the game has changed in the last 6 years or so. Now, I'll let you argue whether or not that's a real example of power creep or if power creep has to be played cards. That's always a fun discussion to look in on down there in the comments. So even if this isn't the best example of power creep for you, I think we can all agree that the game has gotten dramatically more powerful over time, particularly in the last couple of years. Things like Demon Hunter really spiked the power level. I think Descent of Dragons was a big jump in power level as well. So the game just keeps getting more and more crazy. It's escalating just what you can do with a given mana efficiency. Like plays that seemed impossible ever are now happening on like turn 4 or 5. We're just doing crazier and crazier stuff. And, I think it's important for cards to get stronger and for a game to escalate over time. Because if you just have the same power level, people are going to get bored, right? There's no reason to get new cards. There's no reason to get excited. So, a nice, steady, healthy, slow creep is probably good for a game with some occasional sort of resets to the power level to bring things back. That could be a great mechanism to have. But I think right now it's just accelerated a little bit too quickly. And I totally understand why people are feeling the heat here for power creep. Old cards just have a lot of trouble keeping up with newer cards. There are some ways to increase the interest level in cards, like increasing complexity as opposed to power level, increasing certain interactions as opposed to power level. So I hope Hearthstone trends more in those directions. And I think we have a little bit with things like Scholomance, or a lot more strategically complex and interesting designs as opposed to just ratcheting up the power level a little bit. So hopefully that's something we see more of, and less just bigger numbers, because bigger numbers are a problem. You can't just keep making numbers bigger forever and ever. Or we're going to have 2-mana 10/10 someday, and Hearthstone's not going to be the same game. So this one's a tough one to solve, perhaps. It's a card game problem in general, but I totally agree that we've had a little bit too much too quickly as of late. So moving on, a classic complaint here is too much RNG. Randomness in Hearthstone is very common, as you can see here from this search result that doesn't even really capture all of it. And certainly bad randomness can feel really frustrating when your opponent just pulls something out of thin air and they use that to win the game. That's not an experience many people enjoy, even if you're the one who is reaping the benefit of the randomness. Sometimes it can make your wins feel cheap. It's like, oh, I didn't really earn that. I just got bailed out by this card. So the get out of jail free randomness of Hearthstone has snowballed a lot recently. We had things like Evocation Mage, just completely a random deck. It was just all randomness. And that's not exactly fun. And even now, like Evolved Shaman, just summoning a bunch of random minions, sometimes it's just crazy stuff you can't beat, and they steal the game out from under you. So, the bad, spiky, high power, immediate kinds of randomness got a little too common in Hearthstone, I think. There are good kinds of randomness. You want the game to feel different and have unique experiences because you don't want every game to play out exactly the same. So I don't want to do away with randomness altogether, but limiting the kinds of randomness and the impact of that randomness is definitely important, I think, for keeping the game in a healthy state long term. So I completely agree with this suggestion. And then next up here, it's just Demon Hunter. What to fix Demon Hunter? And yeah, of course, a lot of people have been frustrated with Demon Hunter over the last year. It was way, just absurdly too powerful out the gate in Ashes of Outland when it got released, and has certainly remained strong through each of the expansions this year. Now, finally, over the last few weeks, it did get nerfed, and Demon Hunter finally looks like it might be in a fairly healthy, stable position, kind of in the middle of the meta, competitive, but not too overpowered. That said, it still feels like, just one or two new cards can open up the Demon Hunter monster again, that can of worms, and it might dominate the meta once more. So we have to keep a close eye on Demon Hunter. Perhaps it has already been fixed and that's in the works and it feels like an important part of Hearthstone. Maybe it's just going to get crazy again. Let's see, but we definitely need to avoid the kinds of power level spikes Demon Hunter had in the past. Now, I will say one great thing about Demon Hunter is that it is not a class with a lot of randomness, so it does go counter to our previous point a little bit. Demon Hunter being successful does reduce the amount of randomness in Hearthstone in many cases, so that could be another positive trend to monitor. That said, I understand why people rank Demon Hunter so high here. It has been very, very frustrating on multiple occasions, and that's hard to forget. And then finally, the number one thing to fix in Hearthstone, we're still going to get to the stuff to add to the game, but to fix is the dust system. And of course, I totally agree. Hearthstone's dust system is just miserable. Disenchanting a legendary that costs 1,600 dust and only getting 400 dust in return means you have almost zero flexibility in your collection because you're just giving up so much dust efficiency anytime you want to change out cards. Doubling that 400 to 800 would still give Blizzard a lot of kind of dust decay in the system so that people aren't just playing the game for free forever, and that would encourage pack purchases and more time in game, all the things they value, but it would feel so much better, and of course, even higher than that would be fine with me, but just any small change to the dust system would go so far towards making people feel like they get to play what they want instead of being stuck with cards and being stuck with meta changes. There's just so little adaptability or flexibility with your cards and collection right now. So I think Hearthstone's dust system, I don't think anybody feels good disenchanting stuff. I'm at the point where when I buy packs and I spend $20 on a bundle or whatever it is, I already have all the cards. I'm just buying the bundle for the video or for the stream or whatever. And I disenchant it and I get 2,000 dust. That means I spent $20 on a legendary because it's such a poor dust return system when you already have cards. So whether you're, trying to keep up, whether you already have everything, dust just feels terrible. And it needs a fix. It needs some improvements, and I'd say some pretty drastic ones at that. So 100% the right choice here, guys. I'm glad so many of you called out the dust system. I absolutely think it needs some fundamental changes. So next up here, let's talk about things that the game needs to add. So that's like new modes, like classic mode here at the number 5 spot. And what I think people mean when they say classic mode, a lot of you just kind of said classic mode without explaining it, but I think you mean like World of Warcraft classic. Which is basically, if you don't know, it's taking World of Warcraft back to its beginnings, its base level before it had any expansions, and certainly feels like something you could do in Hearthstone. Just go back to the basic and classic set before any expansions came out. Now, I definitely recognize that would be a lot of fun from a nostalgia standpoint. That was a cool era of Hearthstone, but I also would have some worries about that just from a balance standpoint. There were some crazy things. I don't know if people want like nerfs and buffs to happen to kind of correspond that or update it to feel good to modern Hearthstone standards, or if you want just a pure experience, maybe a little of each. But I don't know if I'd want like, War Song, Molten Giant charging, hitting me in the face again, right? So there's all kinds of risks that unfold when you go right back to Classic. Plus, I think the Hearthstone player base is way better than it used to be. I have a feeling there'd just be some OP deck that we didn't find in the old days that people would discover now, to some crazy aggro shaman or something that just dominated the meta. But who knows? Maybe the simplicity of Hearthstone would keep Classic in a really, really healthy spot. I guess we'd have to see. I wouldn't be quite as excited about this one. I'm more interested in like new cards, new experiences, fun, new stuff. I don't know that going back would be much fun for me beyond like a week or two. But if people want to relive that classic experience, certainly World of Warcraft Classic has been thriving. People loved that. So maybe a classic Hearthstone mode would work. That said, World of Warcraft Classic went back like 15 years almost, maybe 15 years. Hearthstone only going to be back like Hearthstone would only be going back like 5 or 6 years, which, that wasn't that long ago. So I don't know if it's time yet for a classic mode. I'd say let's wait at least a few years, maybe 10 years before looking at something like classic. But nonetheless, it'd be fun to go back to the old days, I'm sure. So moving on, this one's kind of like a fix more than an ad, but you guys put it in the what to add section. And enough of you did it that it showed up. A lot of you want more control decks added to Hearthstone. And I get you. I love playing like grindy, long, fatigue style games, as you see here with the thumbnail I included. Oh, by the way, that previous thumbnail was from Trump's Turn 1 Yeti video, a classic Hearthstone video, if I could think of one. And I love control metas, right? I want to grind it out. I want long, awesome games. That's really fun for streaming and videos, and that's just what I personally enjoy the most. That said, I would be hesitant to go too far here. We don't want a just, strictly control versus control meta, because not everybody wants to play 40-minute Hearthstone games. You're in the bathroom, you're on the train, you want 5-minute, 7-minute games. Controlled metas don't always, support that. And I'm sure the Hearthstone team's pretty hesitant to make every game last 30 minutes as well. There can be some real problems there. But I think what people are really getting at with this is that they don't necessarily want a control meta. They just want a balanced meta. And I get it, because I looked at the Hearthstone meta report right now. There are no control decks in like the top 10 decks. It's all really fast, aggressive decks, arguably some mid-range stuff. But control just does not stand out as an archetype right now in Hearthstone that works especially well. There are some decks that can survive and can win and can prey on certain meta matchups, but they're not a core fundamental pillar of the meta lately, in my estimation. We've had some warrior stuff pop in, sure, but it's just not the way to play Hearthstone these days. And I would love a little bit more balance indeed. I would like to see control being a more relevant meta archetype. So totally get this one. So next up is tournament mode. And yeah, of course, people have been talking about tournament mode for as long as I can remember. I think since the beginning. And I get it. You want to set up tournaments and play with your friends. Putting more control in the hands of the player to decide how they play the game sounds awesome to me. Now, Blizzard teased a tournament mode and then pulled the rug out from under it. I don't know why or what the story is there. It almost feels like there was somebody up top at Blizzard who said, nope, can't do that. I don't know if that's like legal reasons or they're worried it would like make people not play the normal game modes. I don't know why tournament mode got killed so unceremoniously, but yeah, it did. And I don't know if it's ever going to come back, but I would love it. Yeah. Give us a way to play with each other. I would set up viewer tournaments for sure. I think this would be a great way to create more events on Twitch with pro players and just support the more competitive ecosystem in Hearthstone really nicely. So another mode people want is co-op mode. You want to be able to play alongside your friends. Who knows exactly what that would look like? I don't think people want just like a tavern brawl style thing. I think we want like actually side by side competing against either 2v2 other players or maybe like raid bosses or whatever it is. That sounds cool. I don't think it's something I'd spend a lot of time with just because it seems like a headache always trying to find somebody to play with. Sometimes I just want to sit down by myself and do my thing. But you could certainly see how this is a fun distraction. And look, as long as people are having fun and bringing in their friends and encouraging people to play together, that's what Hearthstone's all about. So if a co-op mode encourages that, and that became a way for the game to grow and create bonds among people, sign me up. That sounds amazing. And then finally, what people want to add the most, and this was far and away the most common suggestion, is more rewards. People want more gold, more dust, more packs, and I absolutely can't blame them. Hearthstone's really, really expensive if you want to play it the ultimate way, if you want to have lots of decks and cards, if you want to have the most fun, you need to either spend a lot of money or play just an inordinate amount of time, sometimes both. And giving people more stuff, I think, would make the game far more successful because everybody's going to be playing more. They're going to be telling their friends. They're going to be watching more Twitch. It's going to give the game more visibility. It's just this really nice positive feedback loop. When people are enjoying themselves and having fun and doing everything they want, the game ecosystem is just so much healthier and really feeds into itself. Whereas right now, I think we have this, generally negative trend downward in Hearthstone because uh, people can't do everything they want to do in the game. They can't play all the fun cards. They can't build new decks all the time. They just don't have enough flexibility. So the experience starts to sour over time. You feel like you're missing out. You feel like you didn't get to do what you wanted, and you stop playing, stop talking about it, so on and so forth. I think technically speaking at this point, the Tavern Pass system, the rewards track, is more rewards than the old system after all the changes, but it just wasn't nearly enough compared to what I think Hearthstone really needs to breathe some new life into it. So the game can't be free. Blizzard has to make money to support the game, but could they toss a little more our way or even a lot more our way? I certainly hope so. I think so. And it probably needs to be the case that they do if they want the game to survive for the next 5, 10 plus years, which I think we'd all like to see. So yeah, more rewards should be the number one request here. And I completely agree. This gets my stamp of approval. It's also my number one for what Hearthstone needs the most, both this year and in the future. So that said, that wraps it up for this video. Thanks for sharing all your thoughts, guys. Some great ideas here for what the game needs. I completely agree. It's good to kind of touch base and recap where we think the game's at and where it could go moving forward. Just sharing those thoughts goes a long way. So if you like these ideas or hate them, certainly share those thoughts in the comments below. If there's something on here you didn't see something that should be on here, let me rephrase that. Please share that in the comments below. We're happy to discuss it and review your thoughts. But until then, thanks much for watching. And until next time, game on.